So welcome to the Eastside Freedom Library, which is also the home of the Hmong Archives. And I'm Peter. There were some questions about, do we have bathrooms? Yes, we have bathrooms. They're downstairs. We have a guest book that we want everyone to sign so that we can stay in touch with you. And Brian, when he has been in town, which is sometimes, has been on the board of both the Hmong Archives and the Eastside Freedom Library. And we've all missed him greatly when he's been out of town. And so we're glad he's back in town making things happen. And so bringing Thao here to present his new book to us, which we're very honored to have. So I'm going to ask Brian to introduce the Honorable Mr. Thao.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I am Brian Yong, and I am the founder of the Hmong Educational Resource Publisher, which is known as HERD. And we also have a poster here. HERD provides publishing services for Hmong students, writers, educators, researchers, and graphic artists to envision a future led by Hmong voices. So technically, we help teachers, students, if you have any book or manuscript that you would like to publish, we help you publish those books. We help you from step one to the end, and making sure that your story become a book out there for everyone. And that's the same thing when I met with Thao. He said that, well, he has some painting he'd like to put into a book. And we've been working with Thao, me and Khoua, and we work together with Sai, and we, published this book, The Hmong Migration. It's a fantastic book. And with that being said, there are $200 donation for free book tonight. So make sure you put your name in the drawing for free book. And at the end of Thao presentation about his book and why he do, why he paint those paintings, we will open to question and answers. And Thao will, answer any question that you might have. But make sure you put your name for the drawing for the free book. With that being said, her publisher, we help a lot of teachers, students. The idea is to have their story be out there for the community. I was a professor in Mekong State, and a lot of books out there. I don't see a lot of book writing by Hmong, right? And I think that there need to be more diverse book out there. I want to hold this book to show you. This is a Hmong Youth Poetry Collection from Mountain to 10,000 Lake. It just came out today, and the student will be doing a public speaking at the Eastside Freedom Library next month, June 18. So make sure you mark your calendar to join the student, the teacher, to talk about their books and some of the books they have written before. So with that being said, Sai, okay, yours.
Thank you, Brian. So it was just like that. One day I don't even call Brian, I just email or text him on Facebook. Say, Brian, you want to print my stuff? That was it. And now here's a book. No, so when these paintings, it's a 50 piece, and it's at the Minneapolis Institute of Art, and it's in the permanent collection, and it took a long history to get there, but if you go there, every now and then they put like 1 or 2 pieces up. There's times where they put like 10. It's in one of the contemporary gallery. So, but they consistently throughout the year always put at least 1 piece up. So it's kind of cool. Every now and then I go visit. But how I got to was, so I was in college, right? So I was taking art class, and one night after partying, I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, what am I doing here? Who am I? So I start searching for myself, right? And so at that moment, I kind of committed to doing something useful. So because I'm a painter and I want to show I want to find out who I was and show the story of the Hmong people. So I start painting, and I did like 3 or 4 pieces. And those pieces I sold like to some guy, some collector, $100 each or something. And then after I graduated, I figured I want to continue to do that. And my goal was to eventually have a show at the Minneapolis Institute of Art or the walker, right? So that was the other option. So that was my plan, was to do this big series and show. And so I traveled to several countries, China, Thailand, Laos. Then I talked to a lot of the elders who were still alive, who went through the wars. And then I got their stories, and then I used my own experience, and I put all that together. And I went and took some classes with Yu Peng and those guys in China about the history of the Hmong people in China. So I put all those together, and then I created a 50-piece series. People ask me why 50. I just picked a number. I did like 10, and the story got bigger. So I said, let's do 50. It'd be a big enough number where it could tell the story well. And so I used the Ban because the Ban was developed around the late 80s and early 70s, or late 70s in the refugee camps, where these ladies want to tell their stories using batik, the traditional way of sewing stuff, to tell their stories and sell to tourists. And so they told stories because they didn't have language skills. They didn't know how to read and write. So they use figures and they tell stories. So I want to use that and continue to tell the story, but instead of sewing with the story cloth, I use oil. So this is a story that when I was in China, I heard. So it's been a while. I don't remember all the stuff. It's in the book. So if I forgot something, you go back and you read the book. So there's a story about the beginning of the world where gods rule everything. And someone angered the god of lightning, and he struck. And he burned the house that housed all the seeds in the world. And there's a rat there. The rat hoarded a whole bunch of seed in his hole. So that saved the seeds. He's the one that saved the seeds, but all the seeds in the warehouse burnt down. And they used the maple tree to make the house. So the god of the sea got angry that the maple tree was burned down. So they cut the tree fell down, and a butterfly flew out of the tree, and the butterfly fell in love with the water, and she gave birth to a whole bunch of all the creatures in the world, and the last egg to hatch was the Hmong person. So I thought it was a pretty cool story. So the Hmong in Laos and Vietnam don't have, well, the one in Laos anyway, don't have this story. But this story was a Hmong story from the Hmong in China. So this story is the Hmong in Laos, or us, who are in the US, have this story. So this story is about there's two brothers, and the two brothers were out in the field, and this old man came by, and the younger brother was nicer to the older man. And so the older man told him that there was going to be a big flood. He should build this barrel and go in the barrel to save himself. And because the older brother was meaner, he told him to get in a metal barrel. And so, well, really it was God in disguise. And when the flood came, the brother put his sister in it. They both survived. Everybody died, and the brother and sister had no choice but to repopulate the world. But it was not natural, so she gave birth to a pumpkin. They cut the pumpkin to 18 pieces and threw in the woods, and the next morning the 18 clan, the Hmong 18 clans, the 18 clan began. Then this is 5,000 years ago, the Hmong was growing rice in the Mekong, in the Yellow River by the Beijing, around that area. There's 3 different tribes that live there. The Hmong were one of them. And so they're fighting over land and what have you. The other 2 tribes combined forces and fought with the Hmong tribe, and the Hmong tribe lost. And the man that led the Hmong tribe was, in Chinese, is Zi, or Zi. I got some dental work, so I can't pronounce my words anymore. But in Hmong is very close to Ziyang, right? So the Hmong over there called Ziyang. So right now in China there are 3 main people, 3 main guys that they consider as the father of the Chinese society: Huan Di, Yang Di, and Ziyang. So you go to China, the Hmong over there still regard Ziyang as very highly regarded. And then the Hmong kept migrating south, and they got to an area where they started to develop their own system or their own country. And so there was a point where they developed these 3 kingdoms they call San Miao. So translate to Fei Hmong. So they had these three kingdoms that helped each other, but at the end, the empire keep encroaching, and they eventually overtook those Hmong kingdoms as well. So they start moving further south. So I don't know how true this is, but this emperor wanted find the mountain youth, so he sent a princess to go look for this mountain youth, and a lot of the servants on the ships were Hmong, and so they couldn't find it, so they end up in Japan, and they didn't want to come back. So that group kind of became today's modern Japan. When I was there, I met this Japanese tour. I didn't document. I should have got his contact. This Japanese tour developer, and he was visiting. He was curious to see why there's a group of Japanese that keeps going to this one village in Guiyan, around Guiyan, and he's curious to see why, and he followed them, and eventually these people would come to that village and pay homage to that village and say their ancestors came from that village. So that area is like that village is a Hmong village. So there's some small connection there, but it's more or less fairy tale. And then when the empire conquers a group of Hmong, each time they conquer, they want to categorize the Hmong into different groups, and so they would divide the Hmong up into different groups based on their skills in professions. I don't remember where the other groups were. The Thao were the artisans. The Vangs were the leadership. I think the Yangs were kind of the business people. So, but they put in different groups and give them different colors. So I'm not 100% sure, but maybe kind of, you know how when we go, we always talk about our colors. You know, Hmong Dao, Hmong Du. Maybe it came from that era. So you heard about the Great Wall of China. There's also a smaller wall to the south, 150 miles wide, long. And that was after the Hmong were conquered, they put the wall up to prevent the Hmong from going back north to overtake the land. the Hmong didn't know how to, didn't have modern weapon, and so they would use the terrain, and one of the tactics was to lure the emperor's soldiers into gorges and then just roll rocks down. So there was a story of this rogue Han general, and he took refuge in a Hmong village. There he taught the Hmong how to make the musket and the flintlock, and because the Hmong were fighting with the Han Empire a lot. Right after he introduced them to that, they made a whole bunch of guns, and they used that to fight. So there's a saying there's a Hmong saying in China. What is it? Marlon? It's like what? Every 5 years we fight a small war or something, and every 30 years we fight a big war. So, how many years since Vietnam? I think we might have broke that rule. So the Hmong had to fight because after the Boxer Rebellion, when the Chinese Empire lost to the British during the Opium War, they came and taxed a lot of the poor people, and so the Hmong in China buried valuables with their deceased, and they were so poor and taxed so high, they had to go and dig up the valuables from the graves to pay the tax. And so they couldn't do it anymore, so they also, they rebelled along with other minority groups in China, fought the empire. There's a Hmong movie, there's a Chinese Hmong movie talking about that. And then around mid-1800s, some of the Hmong couldn't stay, and so they finally just left China, end up in northern Vietnam, eventually northern Laos. And I traced I'm the 8th generation in our village. So if you count backward every 25 years, it would be around the mid-1800s when my ancestor first left China and ended up in the house. So we're the 8th generation that is in that village. So when the Hmong got into Laos, there was not a lot of land left. The only stuff that was left was high up in the mountain. So they're looking for land and peacefulness, right? They just want to be left alone, really. So the only way to create your society or have food or whatever is they do a lot of slash and burn. They would cut the woods down and they burn it and then farm on it. They also create aqueducts with bamboo, bring water down to the villages. When they got to the village, when they got to the mountains, it was untamed. So there's stories of tigers eating villagers. So my father-in-law told me how they used to trap tigers just so they stop eating people. So that's why he had the story. There's the famous story, right? Where you're the tiger. So tiger is a big jaw, right? It is a big character in our stories. So where the Hmong live is a very fertile ground for opium. So when the French came colonized Southeast Asia, they also colonized Laos. And it got to a point where the Hmong, the French didn't even want taxes from the Hmong, they just want straight up opium. So the Hmong pay the taxes in opium. So the taxes were so high they couldn't pay anymore. So the Hmong rebelled and fought the French because it was unfair. They were being taxed and they didn't have representation. So it was during the Bullfights era where they called the madman's war, but the French couldn't understand. They thought the Hmong were mad and they were just fighting, but really the Hmong were just fighting for representation, and they were being taxed so high. So they took their crossbows out and fight with the French soldiers. And they would make homemade cannons with wood barrels, and they would lure the French armies into the villages and using a shaman to lure them in, and then they take their shots with those wooden cannons. So these stories came from my father-in-law. And then similar to how they fought with the Chinese Empire, they used the terrain and rolled down rocks onto French soldiers. So after the French figured out why they were fighting, the French start recognizing the Hmong and give them titles. So that's why then we had the Getong, which is a small king, translate to being a small king. So we had the Low Getong. So the fighting stopped in this typical Hmong village up in the mountains. They grow rice, they have their chickens and cows and pigs. And then New Year's, where we really only have one holiday, which is the New Year, which is after the harvest season, and it's also at a time where young people could openly court. So it's a conservative society. You don't talk to girls, girls don't talk to guys. But the 3 days of New Year, you could talk to. It's encouraged. A lot of marriages happen after the New Year. And then festivals, and they have bullfights. So unlike in Spain, when the man fight the bull, here the bull is big, so we just let the bulls fight the bulls. and the guy with the best bull gets bragging rights. So late 50s, close to the 60s, after the Hmong, after the French took off, left Laos, the Americans came in, and the French recommended to the Americans that because Americans were looking for people to help push Americans' policy, and the French recommended the Hmong, and so the Americans came in and started training the Hmong how to use modern weapons to fight against communism. So the Hmong fought in Laos on behalf of the Americans until they left in 1975, and a lot of their jobs were to fight, prevent the North Vietnamese from invading South, cutting the Ho Chi Minh Trail, rescuing U.S. pilots, doing recon. They have radar stations at the Hmong Guard up there. And then this is the Long Cheng, where there was a secret base that at one point became the most busiest airport in the world. The Hmong were farmers, but they were able to train Hmong to be pilots. So they took the most educated one, which one of them was Li Lu. So he used to be a teacher, and they trained him on a T-28. These are trainer planes, but they used during World War II in the Hmong. They gave it to the Hmong to fight in Laos. And most pilots will fly maybe 100 sorties, and they retire, they go home. This guy flew about 5,000 sorties before he finally got shot. He was very successful because he flew slow and low to the ground, so he was able to shoot his enemies. Then 1975, the war ended. Americans left. They left Laos, and the last plane left May 14, 1975, and the last plane took supposedly officials, Hmong, military officials and civilian officials to Thailand. So my dad, he just told me this a couple of years ago that he had permission to get on that plane. But when he got to the plane was full. He was able to get in the plane, and there was my mom and 4 other kids. So he got in, 2 kids got in. My mom was outside with the other 2 kids, and we couldn't get the whole family in. So my dad said, forget it. So he left the plane, came and joined the family, and then we made a track to from Phong Cheng down to Vientiane and across the river. So when they heard that people were leaving, there's mass exodus, and the Hmong just whole villages in the middle of the night just packed and left. So this is at one of those bridge, one of the bridge from the Hmong villages into Vientiane, and a group of Hmong came and they tried to cross the river, and this official who was at that area brought some soldiers there trying to convince them to turn back. The crowd kept pushing forward, and in the chaos, they start shooting. And a lot of people died on that bridge on that day. So when I had the show, when I finished the painting, I had a show at the at Sunrise Market. I just pitched a tent and put 50 pieces in there. It was kind of, it was surreal for me. I would walk behind these people who go around and look at the paintings. It was surreal to have guys go in and start pointing and say, hey, I was here. And then when they shot, my parents ran this way, we ran that way. And so it was really real for them. But it was surreal for me to actually see that. And then so this is kind of painting that started the whole thing. So this is an eyewitness account of an event that he saw. The communist soldiers came and burned his village down, and they raped all of the women and cut the heads off, tied the guys to rocks and trees and stab them, and then they put them in the rice pounder and pounded the babies, or they would pick the baby's leg and slam it against trees or stumps. So this was his eyewitness account, and it was in a book on Jane Hamilton's Tragic Mountain. So I read his first witness account, and then from that, I turned that into this painting. And then that kind of sort of became my series. So this is the oldest of all the pieces. And then there's stories of, they call it yellow rain. After, when the Americans left, the communist soldiers had full reign of the country, so they would, I believe they spray Agent Orange among villages. There's people coming out and talking about how it kills the whole forest, all the animals and people puking. And so a lot of the refugees had first eyewitness account of this. But there's been a lot of denial. So when you leave, you don't just go by yourself. Most of the time, whole villages leave. My cousin, his family left with the whole village, and they end up being in the woods for 2 years. And when you're in the woods that long, you run out of food. So you make shift shelters, you eat leaves, bamboo, shoots, anything you can find in the woods, just so you can move on. They would move around, end up back in the village, move again, you know. So his personal track took him 2 years until they got out. And then all the old the former Hmong soldiers did one last stand on Mount Pubia, where they combined all the forces and they were going to resist because they didn't want to get shot at anymore, they didn't want to die anymore. And so the communists did one last assault and wiped them out. So very tragic time. I think mid-80s. That's when I start hearing about this stuff. So this is, so each area is now ruled by whoever has the most guns. Where we live, my village, this former soldier controlled the village. It was not ruled by the communists. He ruled the area. And they turned old feuds that they try to, well, he has the most guns, so he ruled the whole area. And he didn't like what, I guess, I talked to my cousins, and they said after your dad left, my father was kind of the guy that protected everybody. After he left, all his siblings didn't have that protection. And so 2 of my uncles were basically told to go to the woods, and guys followed them, and they just shot them. They got accused of being communists because they ran out of salt, and they went to an area where the communists control to buy salt, and they came back. They got sent to the woods, and they just shot them there. So, and then this, you try to get across the river, or Mekong River, into a refugee camp. And a lot of people die on the way to the river. I have a friend she was the only one survived out of her whole group. She was a baby, and everyone came with her died. Her mom, her dad, the uncles, everybody in that group died. She was a baby, so they left her alone, and she was laying with dead corpses around. The next group came by, and they saw her, and they picked her up, brought her to the U.S. So she's a personal friend. So this kind of stories about that. A lot of the people die before they even get to the river, because the Hmong lived in the mountains. They don't have water, or they don't have access to water. So swimming water is very, scary to Hmong people. You know, we always talk about Zha. We always talk about there's a dragon in the river or in the water that would swallow you if you get to the water. But you have to cross the river, so a lot of people just blow up plastic bags and swim across, or cut pieces of bamboo and put under the armpit and try to get across. And they hire guides to take them halfway. Those guys maybe they want their valuable, just dump all the people into the water and then went back. Even those that make it across the river, the Thai border guards would send them back. So that happened to one of my friends. His group made it across, and they got sent back. So they had to do it twice. So when you're in the refugee camp, you basically are at the mercy of whoever's guarding the camp. So I actually witnessed this scene. Early morning, I went outside. There was a guy that got accused of stealing something. And the police officer guarding the camp, just put his gun in this guy's head, demanding that he confess. If not, he was going to shoot him. So I saw that. Then in the camps, not much to do. We just wait. We wait for everything. You get a number, a UN number, and then if you have an official number, you every other day or 3 times a week, the ration truck will come and they have fish and vegetables, and you have a number, then they'll give you a certain amount of food. And not everybody in the camp has numbers. So those that don't have numbers, the ones with numbers, we would try to share our portion with them. And then the water well, to get water, we wait in lines, and we would use old gas cans to carry water back to the house to cook. So those old gas cans were really, really valuable. And the water only comes on like in the evening, so you line up and you wait till the water comes on, and then you take water back. So in the camp, we don't have showers, so when it rains, we take the opportunity to take a shower in the rain. Kids play, it's tropical, so the rain is warm, so play. And up here is a funeral scene. So when a Hmong died, they play that drum. I remember hearing that drum like 4 different directions every night. So you know that there's 4 funerals that night. Almost constantly, almost every night, you hear funeral drums all the time in the camp.
Excuse me, Sai, how old were you then?
I was 8 when we left, so I was between 3 and 8. So I still have a lot of vivid memories of the camp. Not so much of Laos, because it was 3 when we left, but the camp was still very vivid. And then, if you have permission to come to the U.S., they give you a test to see if you actually participate in the war and you helped the Americans. And if you did, they give you permission to come to the U.S. And when you get that permission, there's a list. I don't know how often, but when the list comes out, people go out and see if their name's on the list. And if their name's on the list, they prepare and they get ready. And in the morning, a bus comes by, and you throw all your luggage and everything, and you get into this bus, and all the camp comes out to say their last goodbye, and they will never see you again from that moment on. We call this the bus to America. Bus Mumika. But really is, they just take you to Bangkok to another refugee camp for orientation before you come out, before you come to America. And then when you get here, you live in the project because you're poor. You don't have any money. So the Hmong lived in North Minneapolis in that project before they tore it down. And they would get robbed all the time. So they would go to the flower store and get these bars, these decorative bars, and put on their windows. So the burglar can't come in. So they went from a refugee camp to almost living in a prison. So when you're poor, you have no other way but go to the social service and get help. So this is my family going to the social service to get help. And then when you don't speak any English, you become a target to the bullies at school. So growing up, I'm a nice guy, but I fought a lot. All I remember of elementary all the way up to high school is fighting. Because I didn't want the bully to continue to bully me, so I would fight back. So I remember fighting a lot. So this Hmong kid, because you look different, you don't speak the language, you're easy target for bullies. And then your parents didn't have good education, so they could only do assembly jobs, minimum wage and what have you. I remember doing some of those jobs with my uncle, and these were stuffing shampoos, and it was coming real fast. We're doing like 10 per minute or something. No, not a minute. I don't know. It's so fast. You got to tape all your fingers so it doesn't get cut. So when it comes too fast, you knock it over and then they restart the line. So we found tricks to slow it down. And then I was part of the Boy Scouts. And while we're the Boy Scouts took us to the woods, and we were able to be free and just run around the woods. You would know the Hmong Boy Scout troop from the other troop. First thing the Hmong Boy Scout get off the bus is they start a fire. Within 5 minutes, there's fires everywhere. Then they pitch the tent around the fire. The other troops, they slowly unload, pitch the tent, then make fire last. So that's the difference. I don't know, Hmong kids love making fires. And then back in the old country, we go to the New Year, right? Outside, but here it's cold. So we had to go indoor. So this is the old Metrodome. So there's no harvest season, but it's still around that time. Here, over there is the harvest season. Here, we wait until an American holiday. So everyone get their week off. Then we make the Hmong New Year, so everyone could come. So it just kind of became like, have you guys always thought why is Hmong New Year always on Thanksgiving?
It works.
Yeah, because everyone works, so we need an extra day. You know, the extra day to celebrate the Hmong New Year. It's like a 3-day celebration. So all of our holidays are always around American national holidays. Like the sports festival, you guys ever wonder why is 4th of July weekend? Same thing. I went to the first one. It started as a picnic down in Harry Island, and it was just the refugees coming together and said, "Hey, let's do potluck and do a picnic," and then every year just kind of grew. So it grew to a big, humongous event. Same thing with the New Year. our first New Year, remember everyone brought food and we did potluck, you know? So we don't do that anymore. So back in Laos, out in the woods, outside they do the bullfights. You guys missed that part. So they do the bullfights, but here, you know, you can't have bullfights at the Metrodome or at the civics, at the river center there. So we have Hmong beauty pageant. So back in the days, the winner gets a brand new Toyota.
Wow.
Yeah. So
So you went from bullfights to beauty pageant.
yeah, that's the big event now is the beauty pageant. You can't do the bullfight. I think Peter wouldn't like it. So then this is the picnic that turned into this big international festival where people from all over the world come. And it's right in the middle of St. Paul.
How many days does that go on?
I think usually it's 2 days, right? Saturday and Sunday. Oh, it's 3 now? So I took Senator Al Franken there when he was running. And we walked around and I made him eat all these weird food. But he goes, man, we don't need to go anywhere. Asia's right here. Because it was so packed. So you don't have to go anywhere. You want to spend a couple of days to figure around if you want to get a sense of Asia. So in the late 80s and 90s, the mom and dad worked really hard. So they're never home. You know, my parents used to have 2 full-time jobs each. So they're never home. So the kids were out by themselves. Like Shane, we were just talking about that. The kids are out by themselves all the time. They kind of parent themselves. So first they formed little groups to protect themselves from being bullied. And then eventually it grew and they got more sophisticated, and then they became gang, different groups of gang. I remember at one point in high school, every one of my friends had a gun, stolen gun. And I get offered like $50. Hey, you want a gun? $50. Everyone had a gun except me. Somehow I just knew I didn't want to get shot at. So I didn't have a gun, but all my friends, they weren't even in gangs, they all had guns. So in the late 80s and early 90s, there was, as you remember, there's a lot of gang issues within the community. And right now it's not as prevalent. It's really minuscule now. And then depression, clash of culture. There was a story of this lady who was depressed and being abused by her husband, and she committed suicide, and she killed all her five or six children. Mm-hmm. And so it was really hard time for the community. A lot of emotional and mental issue came out and manifest in personal injury and suicide and mass murder, not anyone else but just within the family. So we saw a lot of that in the 90s, not so much now. So and then the young Hmong kids start to realize their potential and start to take ownership of the community. So they start organizing. So this was in '89 where there was a radio station that made fun of the Hmong community, and so I was part of that group, and we organized. And we didn't want a lot. We just demanded an apology, and we didn't know what was going to happen, but we got an apology from the radio station. We're like, I think at that moment for myself, and not only myself, but the whole group that was organizing, we felt this sense of empowerment, that if we really did something with ourselves, or we really organized the community, we could have a big impact and we could shape the community. And so a lot of people around my age, we were in our early 20s, just recent college grads. So we started taking leadership roles in the community and start speaking for the community. So a lot of these guys are mid-40s and 50s now. So. And then that kind of led to almost the political movement where you understand that your voice, you could make your voices heard by organizing. So that kind of led to the political movement where I participated and I got elected as well. And right now it's a lot of them understand the process, and that's why the last year we have historical movement in the political arena for the Hmong community. A whole bunch of them got elected. So, so the Hmong start out living in the mountains and just farmers, basic farmers. But they slowly figure out how to participate in the in businesses. So, like anybody that didn't have money, we would go to the most poorest area where the property are the cheapest, right? Frogtown, East Side, and we would start putting our roots down and start buying old buildings, rehabbing them, and turning it into grocery stores. And so, right now has moved beyond that, where it actually is an economic engine for the city now, instead of just renovating old buildings. And then this is to pay homage to the Bandao style. Also to show where all the Hmong people are. I need a little update, but basically the Hmong start out in China and they end up in northern Laos, northern Vietnam, and they're in Thailand and Burma. And after the war, they left. Some end up in France. There's some in Germany, Netherlands too, Australia, Canada, the U.S., French Guyana. I believe there's a group. There was a small group. Either I forgot the name. Either Brazil or maybe Venezuela. Argentina. Yes. So what happened was I actually met one of that person from that group. And I said, how'd you guys end up there? They said, well, when we went to do our tests, we passed. They gave us permission to immigrate to a different country. So they said, pick where you want to go, North or South America. They figured South, right? Maybe Florida, maybe Mississippi. So they ended up in South America. And there was like 20-something families, and they've been trying to do family reunification with the families here in St. Paul. So it was not funny, but kind of funny, but sad at the same time that they end up there. So right now there's almost Hmong all over the world. So that's pretty much the presentation. If
And then that last one goes back to the lady sewing, doesn't it, with the border that you put
Yep.
on it?
Yep, it pays homage to the tapestry, which tells stories, the story cloth. And so I use that as my style. And the story, the magnitude of it is very intense, you know. I had to put in happy colors, not so graphic. I mean, the events was very bad, but it's very intense. If I had drawn them realistic, it would be too hard for the viewers to engage in it. So I had to make it not realistic. and also homage to the tapestry. And then at the same time, when I was in the camp, I doodle a lot. You know, we didn't have anything, we just had a stick and dirt, so you would draw war scenes in the sand, and we would draw tanks, and your tank would shoot the other guy's tank, and then it would be these big elaborate war scenes in the sand, and then when we're done, we just kick dirt on it and then start over. So, I don't know if you guys got any questions about the presentation or how I got there, or even about me? Or,
how long did it take you to write the book? Or just like,
so the book, it just took me one phone call. Right? So the book is the easy part.
then the process?
But yeah, the whole process took me 5 years from start to end. And I did that when I was 25, and I completed it when I was 30. So
How big are they in real life?
30 by 36. 30, 36. Yeah, if you have a chance, go to the Minneapolis Institute of Art, go to the Temporary Gallery, Jasper John, Andy Warhol, and then you have me. They don't show all of it. Every now and then they show like a couple of them. They show like 10. I seen it where they shown like 1. So it's always there, and you'll get to see it.
I'm just curious, is Hmong history being taught in St. Paul?
I don't know. I think there's some movement.
Well, now that May 8th or May 14th.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Opposed to next year in all of the public schools, all the history classes that we're supposed to be teaching next year.
There's some push from some of the Hmong parents. I think the charter school kind of, because they compete with the public school, and it forces the public school to say, hey, for us to keep the Hmong kids, you got to make it relevant to them as well, to the parents. And so I think there's that movement.
A story related one. I came from West Minneapolis.
You read the book, you won't miss
Get it
anything.
all.
Yeah.
I have a question that I'm trying to jog my memory. I taught English almost 40 years ago to the first group of Hmong in Frogtown. Upstairs in an apartment, a grandma and a young girl. But I was trying to remember if the church sponsored, was that, because there was a connection?
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
So so people are always curious, why did Hmong people end up in Minnesota?
Yeah.
So the Lutheran Social Service, Catholic Charity, they're very strong, right?
Yes.
They're organized well. To come to the U.S., you need a sponsor. So you need a family to sponsor you. So those two charities would get Catholic families, Lutheran families, to sponsor the first few Hmong families. And family is a big deal for the Hmong community. So our sponsor was a Catholic family in Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center. And it was easy for them to sponsor us. There was 9 kids, mom and dad, so there's 11 of us. That Catholic family, all the kids are grown, but there was 8 or 9 of them too. So we just went right into their room, their little house, and we just took over their bunk beds and whatever. So then my dad ended up sponsoring my cousins and what have you, the next several waves. So, and then the community I think Minnesota offered opportunities, and education was really good. And it kind of became a snowball effect where some of the Hmong were starting to do well here. And so there's second migration of Hmong from other parts of the country want to cash in on the economic opportunities. So they come here and they open their shops and what have you. So yeah, so you got a little glimpse of it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And I thought that the grandma, was it possible that that there was some illiteracy even on her part, because I tried to get her to show me her language too, so I could, and it was very difficult. And
So there's no written language until the mid-50s.
okay,
And everything was oral.
okay.
So I remember my mom telling me 3 times of the same thing, repeating. Sure, you know, so it's because we grew up in an oral society. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, bless her heart.
yeah. So this is the first time in the history of our people where we got the opportunity to get educated just like anybody, you know, as a whole, not where only certain people with money, you know. So now, so we're more or less taking advantage of this and not let it the opportunity. So.
Thank you. What's the medium you used for your pictures?
So I use oil.
Okay.
I was poor. I didn't have a lot of money to buy oil, so I diluted it down a lot. I mean, if I had to go back, right, then I had unlimited resource, I think it would look more elaborate and probably thicker. You know, this is almost washed down to watercolor. It's almost watercolor consistency, but it's just oil based. Yeah,
You washed it down.
I washed it down because I didn't have a lot. I had to make do. But I remember doing like 4 or 5 pieces at the same time. And each one's from different era. And so after I finished the pieces, I would put them in order. I would lay them out and say, this comes first, this comes next. But I didn't have an idea of where each piece goes when I was painting it. I just knew I want to paint that particular scene or event. Yeah. Yeah.
So you completed the series in 2001, 2002?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Right. But after the project was concluded, you know, it's been a while. Do you sort of see any sort of trends and shifts in the Hmong history since you've been chronicling it? And like, if you were to go revisit this project, what sort of panels, what sort of historical events would you include in, you know, maybe revisiting this?
So there's more information, right? Because there's more research done now. I certainly want to include some of that stuff. But a lot of the oral story, like the personal stories, are kind of disappearing because those aren't written down, and they're just told by our parents and they're passing away. So those pieces are not being documented, or if they are, they're not as relevant as some bigger events, you know? Just like the stuff where we witnessed and but we don't remember and it's not as big of a deal. But at that time it was like the scene with that lady and she killed all her kids. It was really traumatic for the community at that time. You know, everybody knew why she did it, and everyone felt really bad about it. But today, it's not relevant. Everyone forgot. And so I think stuff like that will kind of disappear, but maybe the paintings will kind of help preserve those stories. Yeah.
So I have a few questions actually. So like, I guess, okay, so when you were showing the picture of like the separation of Hmong people in China and everything, would you say that's where we got our surnames from?
I think there's a possibility, you know, where we got grouped into different groups based on our profession, and we're giving names or identifications. You know, like my Hmong Thao is my last name, but the Hmong Du is when I go to China and Vietnam, I have kinship with Hmong Du. Their last name is Du. But and so I think there's change, but no one has really tied that together. It's just kind of out there.
Yeah, I've heard like I've heard a few like different theories.
Yeah.
And so like, Sifu Li Ball says something different. Sifu B says something different.
Right.
Sifu Mai Na says something different.
Right, because it hasn't been tied together. Because when I was in Thailand, Hmong Mua, right? They don't call themselves Hmong Mua, right? They call them Boa. Which is, but they consider when they meet another Hmong Mua from the U.S., they consider them as part of the clan. You know?
Yeah.
So, but that information is gonna start to get lost, right? But
So when you go to China, can you speak the language is similar enough so you can understand?
depending on the region, there are some areas where I could understand not all of it, but some of it. You know the ones, the kids, the little kids, I can understand them. Their enunciation is similar to mine. But I think the parents, as they got older, maybe they're speaking closer to Chinese, and so the tone changes. But when I listen to the little kids running around playing, I understood them, you know? Yeah.
And then also, and I'm asking questions in in chronological order. I have two more questions. Now I lost it. So in one of the picture of Backyard's Rebellion,
Yeah.
there was that was one of the pictures that was shown to me during one of my I took a course on the Vietnam War and the Hmong
Okay.
experience at Century, and that was one of the pictures that was shown to us.
Oh.
Yeah. And so like I've seen a few of your work
Yeah.
like, around.
It's all over.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in like in that picture there was someone holding a flag.
Yeah.
If you can talk more about that, because
So okay, so the flag. Okay. So when she said it was a lot of people have it, and I said it's all over. I was referring to this. So I get a lot of calls and texts and Facebook messages from I don't know who, but more or less some young person who's interested in the history, and they ask permission, say, hey, can I use your stuff to do something with it, right? I say, yeah, go ahead. You know, and I have people come to me and say, don't you worry about copyrights and stuff. I'm like, no, I don't care. I put it out there so people could use it, just like your professor use it for your class. You know, it's for them to help educate. So to me, it's not a big deal. And I'll be thrilled if that kid could make money off of it. I'll be like, oh, cool, he figured something out that I couldn't.
yeah, because my professor talked about like someone holding a flag.
So
or
the
whatever.
white flag is this.
Yeah.
So the Hmong shaman, the Hmong Fa is, so it's a belief. They have these mythical belief and these magical belief that they have these magical power. So the flag is supposed to wave off the bullets to prevent them from getting shot. So that's why they call it the crazy man's war, because they weren't afraid now, right? Because in their mind they have these magical powers where the flag could protect them from the bullets.
Did it work?
No.
Yeah. See, and this is why I'm asking, because my professor was telling me something I've never heard of before, and so I wanted you to clear that up.
Yeah.
Because
What did he say?
He said that there was something like a messiah or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
that led the rebellion.
Yes.
Yes.
It was like we were just waiting for a messiah to come back to like lead us to freedom or something like that.
Yes.
And I've never heard of a messiah ever in my life, so I don't know.
There's many stories of the Messiah in the Hmong, all dating early 1900s, all the way to the war in the 60s, with Shong Lu, where he developed the writing system, and he said he was the Messiah, and a lot of people followed him, and he was gonna create a Hmong country, and my uncles that all followed him. This is a fascinating story it's almost, I told the story to some of my friends, and they're like, that's the same story of Jesus, where at the end he got crucified, you know, and he went willingly as well. And so I know I know all this because my father-in-law was the guy that was entrusted by Shong Lu to carry on his work. And then there was also a period where Shong Lu was being chased and shot, and my dad Shong Lu was injured, my dad carried Shong Lu on his back into the woods to escape the shooting. So
Was this in the 50s and 60s or what?
it's in the 60s and 70s, during the whole war.
Yeah.
So we only hear about the secret war, but there's so many facets of that piece that is not documented down or researched.
Yeah, so you know who killed him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Who?
the general.
Yeah.
Because the fear was he was gaining,
Too popular. He was Caesar.
yes, he was gaining people.
Wow.
And the general was worried that his soldiers and the people would go with him, and the general won't have any power. So he had him killed.
I had a question about the stories, the oral traditions in your culture. And first of all, it'd be great if somebody could do oral histories or videotape them somehow or something, but are the stories like kind of creation stories or myth stories or lesson stories? Are they like real ancient stories that are told generation after generation kind of a thing?
You know, I thought about that, and we don't tell a lot of stories in the U.S. But I remember almost every night there was story time. It was entertainment
Right,
more than anything.
right.
It didn't really teach. And as I thought more and more about it, I know that the story guy, he was just making it up as he goes. I'm starting to realize that. I'm like, I mean, there's a base.
Right.
There's a base of the story, and then the guy just keep making it up as he go. Because, you know, there's no TV and no
Right.
radio.
Did a lot of them involve animals? Because I was a teacher and I used to
Yes,
read
animals
mouse
are a big
stories,
deal,
the
yeah.
tiger and everything.
Yeah. So we miss the tigers a big, because we get eaten a lot by tigers. And then the elders always, because they don't want you to move from them, so they would use the tiger as the boogeyman
Right,
to prevent you from leaving.
right.
Yeah. So there's stories of tigers eating kids all the time
Right.
to prevent them from leaving the village.
Yeah, big bad wolf.
Yeah, because they don't know what's down in the city. They themselves don't know. They don't want their kids to go because they're scared.
They'll leave the farm.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I think more about it, I'm like, oh, all this stuff just makes sense. So, okay.
Okay, last question.
All right, and then Martin.
All right. Okay, who was the first Getong and how did they decide like who gets to be Getong?
The French just say you're the guy. That's it.
Well, like who was the first Getong then?
Lo Kitong.
No, Getong
He's
was
the
the
first and only one.
Well, cause like from what Tipu Maina said was that there was the Moors, the Lors, and the Lees, and they all alternated power within like the Getong
But
position.
there was only really one Kitong.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lo Kitong. And the French made him the Kitong.
Okay.
And then it just stayed with his family, right?
Mhm.
And then you have the Li Fong, which married into his family.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Are your paintbrushes still working?
Oh.
I know, so I thought about this a while ago. Now, I don't need to paint to live on. So I venture off and I did some business and I made enough that I don't need to work anymore. So I told my wife, I said, you know, eventually I'm gonna get bored and for me just to stay occupied, I think I might have to pick up painting again. Because that's just something I'm interested in. So, I don't know, my hands might not be as good.
They have modern art.
My eyes might not be as good, but I'll just have to paint big, right? But I think the mind's still there. There's still the desire. So, never know,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Well, we are running out of time, but we do get about $200 donation for free books to this audience by Miley Wang, who is a realtor for Coldwell Banker. And then if you haven't put your name on the drawing, please let me know so we can give you one, and you can sign up for drawing, and then we will draw. So
and then if you want, I could start signing book while you're doing it.
yep, so we want to draw, and then you want to get a free book, then we will have sign the book for you personally if you want he to sign that name directly for you, and he can sign the book directly just for you. Anybody else haven't get one?
Well, thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
I haven't done this presentation in a long time.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, so Fu, I might need some assistance up here.